colleges today. I'm sure Eloy experiences this here. It's very difficult for them to take a full course load in many cases because the courses aren't there and they don't have the revenue structure to put the courses.
So this is perhaps very California specific. Maybe you've been following it. Senator DeLeon introduced on February 14th legislation which, as I understand it, would essentially attempt to leverage federal dollars with respect to the California Cal Grant B's access, and he calls this legislation a California Access Tax Credit Fund, which he says would double the ability to draw on federal funding for things that are not necessarily tuition related specifically, but textbooks, transportation, healthcare, and the like. I haven't had a chance to study the bill, but I wanted to understand if you have had a chance to look at it, how that figures into the general direction that you're proposing in terms of greater leverage of federal funds. Does it create incentives for students to move toward completion? Is this consistent with the goal of making sure we're not leaving federal dollars on the table?
I'm not familiar with that bill. I'll take a look at it and get back to you on that. I'm sorry, I just don't feel...
Fair enough, I understand.
In a position to respond.
Lauren Kay.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. You said earlier that some people believe that institutions should not raise tuition. That was just a belief system, and I was wondering what the reason is for that particular argument, other than simply not wanting to burden students' finances. Is there anything beyond that?
I think there are different legitimate philosophies. The reason why the West, and the West was much more prominent in this than the rest of the country. Almost all of the Western states believed very prominently that low tuition was the best way to provide access, and that public higher education was a public good that the public should pay for. And so if you read things about when the states entered statehood and whatever, this was considered to be, interestingly, many of the Western states came into statehood right around the period of time when the Land Grant Act was created in the 1860s or shortly thereafter. And so there was really this philosophy that public higher education was a public good, similar to elementary and secondary education. It should be funded from the public resources. So I think that's where it evolved, and there are still many people who feel very strongly that that's the case. In about the 1970s, Clark Kerr from the University of California, when he had developed the master plan, he supported some work by the Carnegie Corporation, the Carnegie Commission, or Carnegie Foundation, that really looked at a lot of things, and there was sort of a change in philosophy, sort of along the lines of who benefits, who pays.
Okay, so this wasn't peculiar to institutions. This was just this was a generic philosophy that students shouldn't pay tuition. It wasn't peculiar to the state shouldn't be raising it or the institution shouldn't be raising it.
No, I think you're right, and I think that was really very strongly the case in California originally. I mean, you guys sort of fool around with this, but you don't charge tuition; you charge fees, right, because tuition isn't supposed to happen. And I think even